I've always had Amber Valletta in my mind as a staple of the 90s. But looking back at her work now, it's not only that she was there, it's more about the specific energy she brought to the industry. She arrived right when fashion was getting a little tired of untouchable perfection. Designers were looking for a real person, and Amber had this grounded, conversational presence that felt different. In this model moment, we're talking about Amber Valletta. Amber's journey started in her hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma, about as far from the runways of Paris as you can get. At 15, her mother enrolled her in a local modelling school, which sounds like a standard start, but for Amber, it was the beginning of a rapid trajectory. A model scout saw that specific, clean-cut American face that the industry was starting to crave, and by 17 she had left the suburbs of Tulsa for the high-pressure world of Paris. And that was the great contrast with Amber, this grounded girl from Oklahoma stepping into the middle of 90s Paris. It gave her this edge. She brought a sense of realness to those avant-garde clothes. By the time Amber arrived in the 90s, the whole vibe of the industry was changing. People were honestly just over the superhuman energy of the 80s. Everything had been so big and untouchable for so long. And then suddenly fashion wanted to kind of breathe again, wanting something that felt a bit more undone and human. This is where that Waif movement really started to take hold. And it was more than just about a look. It was about wanting models who looked like real people with actual lives. Designers were looking for a sense of vulnerability, and that is what Amber had. But what made Amber different from others at that time was her clean American bone structure that kept her from looking too grungy. She was the waif who still looked kind of healthy, and because of that, she became the bridge between the raw, street-style aesthetic of the early 90s and the high-luxury minimalism that followed. She was the perfect canvas for designers like Calvin Klein and Jill Sander. They weren't looking for a performance on the runway. They wanted a girl who could wear a simple slip dress or a neutral wool coat and make it look like an intentional choice. And when you look at her early editorial work, she isn't posing, she's just kind of existing in the frame. And that was the waif revolution, the idea that a model could just be a person, and that was enough. As the 90s moved forward, Amber became one half of one of the most famous friendships in fashion history. When she teamed up with Shalom Harlow, they became known as Shalamber. While the industry had seen iconic model friendships before, Amber and Shalom brought a different kind of energy to the table. It felt like it was a sisterly bond that felt incredibly grounded. If you'd like to dive deeper into that specific friendship, I've actually done a full model moment on Shalom Harlow as well. You can find that linked here or below. This partnership really hit the mainstream when they took over hosting MTV's House of Style. Suddenly, we weren't just seeing Amber in a silent, high-fashion editorial, we were also seeing her personality. Throughout the 90s, Amber cemented her supermodel status by appearing on a staggering number of magazine covers, most notably for Vogue. Her first Vogue cover was in February 1993, which she shared with Shalom. But for fashion historians, it's her runway work that really defines the decade. One of the most essential moments was her opening look for Tom Ford's Gucci Fall 1995 show. That combination of the jewel-toned satin shirt, those low-slung velvet hipsters, and the mohair coat became an instant turning point in fashion history. And of course, we have to mention the jungle dress from the Spring 2000 Versace runway, while most people associate that plunging green leaf print with Jennifer Lopez at the Grammys. It was Amber who debuted it on the catwalk. It's a look that has followed her throughout her career. In fact, in late 2025, she made headlines all over again by re-wearing a version of that iconic dress, proving that her connection to these archival moments is as strong today as it was 25 years ago. By the early 2000s, Amber did what many models tried to do, but few actually pulled off. She transitioned into acting, and she didn't just do cameos, she took on the leading roles. You might remember her best as Allegra Cole in the movie Hitch, or her role as Lydia Davis in the TV series Revenge. While everything looks seamless from the outside, there was a much more difficult reality happening for Amber behind the scenes. She's been very open about her long-standing battle with addiction, something she's dealt with since she was a kid. When she moved to Europe, that struggle really hit a wall. While Amber doesn't blame the industry for her addictions, the fashion industry made drugs and alcohol readily available. By her early 20s, right when she was at the peak of her career, it started to get in the way of her work. In 1999, when she was only 25, Amber made the choice to get help. She has said it wasn't because of some massive burst of willpower, but simply because she didn't want to die. She's been sober for over 25 years now, and she views that sobriety as a literal necessity for her survival. And today she uses her experiences to mentor younger people struggling with mental health issues and addiction. Amber isn't just an icon of a chaotic era. She's someone who actually made it through and stuck around to make sure the next generation has the support she didn't have. But what's really interesting about this period is that Amber never actually retired from the fashion world. Even as she pivoted into Hollywood and eventually stepped back to have her son, she never closed the door on modelling. It's actually quite cool to see that for models of her time, there didn't have to be a definitive end date. She proved that you could be a mother and an actress and still be a high fashion icon. Decades later, she's still taking on major modelling jobs and walking for the biggest houses in the world, showing that her influence isn't just nostalgic, it's permanent. But regardless of her work in film or her impact as an activist, there is one place where Amber Valletta remains untouchable: the runway. Amber has described her own natural style as extra slouchy compared to the more aggressive, theatrical walkers of the era, and you can really see that in her gait. She brought this relaxed, cool girl posture to the catwalk that felt entirely new. Editors at the time frequently praised her for this unforced presence. She had a captivating stillness that gave her a statuesque quality even when she was in motion. What's truly impressive, though, was her professional versatility. She had this rare ability to turn it on and off, adopting a powerful high-fashion persona on the runway, while maintaining that famously grounded, approachable personality the moment she stepped backstage. To understand why she remains a designer favourite decades later, you have to see that rhythm for yourself. Let's take a look back at the archival footage that defines the movement of Amber Valletta.